But I think, with innovation, you need to, never give up on what you want to achieve. Like now we are looking beyond atropine for myopia. We've started work on it.
Yeah.
So nothing kind of in the long term gets us demoralized. Yes, I would love for the system to change so that after me, younger entrepreneurs would do it 100 times better than what I could do it or what Endot could do.
Right.
So I'm more concerned about the youngsters, that I don't want the youngsters to then do the same thing what's happening in pharma now of business of copy pasting. So we can get out of it because we're already, we've been there for a long time and we could somehow balance it out and, make it a profitable venture. But what about a startup pharma who wants to do something new? It's such a big gamble for them.
True.
They'll not be able to pull it off.
You were appointed the Vice President of IDMA's R&D and Innovation Committee in 2025. You have seen from the inside, the institutional vantage point. What have you seen that you didn't see before?
See, one thing I realized that everyone wants to innovate, right? That mindset of wanting to do is there. They want to research. The research minds are there, but even the money is there, right? Because now funding is available, there are various ways of getting it. But because of the system being unfair, because innovators are not protected, there is a hesitancy to get into it in the first place. So then they just say, what's the point of doing it? So that's one thing that I noticed. And I've been for enough panel discussions where we all talk about, the industry should move from volume based to value based. And in fact, when I hear it, I get so fed up because I was like, this is all just talk. What we need is a simple policy clarification, if not a policy change at a higher level, and the entire scene can change. Right. And this is the, I would say the white elephant in the room where no one wants to address. They talk about everything. I've seen podcasts, for 3-4 hours talking about innovation and all of that. But until and unless the laws and rules are there to protect innovators and balance it with the generics, like how they have in the US and China, where simply this is just going to be talk.
You sent me a document in April when one line was there, I want to quote it right. The company that invests the most in innovation receives virtually no regulatory advantage, which is sad, and then when, as we are recording this 2 days ago, there was this podcast of Nikhil Kamath, where two great pharma CEOs explain how post-patent expiry, everything can be copied. All you need is a bioequivalence data for a drug to enter the market. What they didn't explain is what happens when a company that has innovated something and a company that innovates everything and it literally just get copied overnight. Isn't it disheartening for that company?
It is. So I think when the industry talks about clinical exclusivity, the reason why they don't want it is because the intent of those rules, which they call as NDCT rules,
right,
was basically so that if a drug is approved in regulated markets, it could be brought into India and be marketed and sold at a lower price. So it made sense there because we're not doing the research. Someone in the US is doing it. But what if when someone in India does the research,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
Then it beats the point, right, of not offering clinical exclusivity. So our call has always been that Indian developed medicines, indigenously developed medicines, should be given a period of exclusivity where there cannot be a second applicant, so that you give time for that company to recover its research investments, like what happens in all other mature markets. That is all we're asking for. But this is such a controversial topic. The minute you mention clinical exclusivity in any pharma forum, the first thing that comes to people's mind is lack of access. Market access will reduce, cost will go up. But they are taking a 50-year-old argument, and trying to apply it now.
True.
Because affordability is not an issue for new drugs. It could be an it could be an issue for, say, an established drug which is needed, and for that also you have the Pradhan Mantri Jan Aushadhi scheme, you have state governments giving free medicines, all of that. Even after the affordability problem in India, you have almost 750 million people who have no problems paying the full price of their medicines.
True.
But we still talk about affordability, lack of market access, and then we use that to stifle innovation and the scientific minds in the country.